Hello. I encourage you to take a moment, sit back, and think about what you've eaten today. If on that list are apples, bananas, strawberries, blueberries, peaches, potatoes, almonds, coffee, or chocolate, a bee helped grow that food for you. In fact, on any given day, about 35% of the food you eat is produced with the help of honeybees. Needless to say, bees are incredibly important in agriculture. However, despite being one of the most important contributors to the produce we eat, bees are under threat. Introduced in the United States in 1987, varroa mites, specifically the varroa destructor variety, are an ever-growing concern among beekeepers. The parasitic mites will crawl into bee brood cells, the cells in which bees develop from eggs to adults, and feed on the developing bee larvae. The varroa mites will reproduce in these cells, and when the bee emerges as an adult, they crawl off to find a suitable brood cell to start the process again. Bee larvae that have been fed on by varroa mites often display smaller, misshapen wings, malformed bodies, and will carry whatever viruses mites have transferred to them while feeding on them. These viruses include the deformed wing virus, which causes bees to be born with unusable malformed wings, the acute bee paralysis virus, which kills bee larvae before they emerge from their brood cells, and the parasitic mite syndrome, another disease that targets and kills bee larvae. All of these diseases are fatal. Hives infected by the acute bee paralysis virus can die in one season, and hives infected with the deformed wing virus and parasitic mite syndrome usually collapse between 1 to 3 years. So, if varroa mites are the nexus of these diseases and events, eradicating them is the next plausible step, correct? I wish it were that simple, but unfortunately, there is no catch-all way to kill these parasites the size of a pinhead. And even if you did find a way to cleanse your hive completely of varroa mites, you would then have to quarantine your bees from both wild and other domesticated bees to prevent your stock from becoming infected by another hive's mites, which is virtually impossible. There are already widely available pesticides developed to target varroa mites, but we cannot rely on these pesticides as the only method of protecting our bees. Natural pesticides can cause mortality to both brood and adult bees if they exit the correct temperature range, and varroa mites have already shown a resistance to synthetic pesticides. I believe that there needs to be a bigger emphasis on breeding bee queens to be resistant to varroa mites. Bees that are shown to resist varroa mite infestations typically carry the VSH trait, short for the varroa-sensitive hygiene trait. This trait is displayed by better hygiene in bees, including more grooming and the removal of parasiticide larvae. If queens are bred to carry the VSH trait, they produce offspring that are resistant, eventually creating a whole hive of healthier bees. Some bee breeds and lines already carry the VSH trait, such as Russian bees and the USDA-developed pole-line bees. Russian bees were naturally selected to carry this trait by being introduced to varroa mites far before the commercially used Western honeybees, allowing the resistant bees to survive and the non-resistant bees to die off. The pole-line bees were specifically bred by USDA researchers to carry the VSH trait by selecting trait-carrying bees to breed into the line of queens. We have the means of protecting bees against varroa mites, selective breeding, but ultimately, beekeepers would rather use pesticides that run the extremely fine line of killing the very bees that they are meant to protect. We have the solution right in front of us, like I said before, selective breeding, and it is for the good of the insects that produce a third of the food we eat that we utilize it. Thank you.